Welcome to Life
on
Life's
Terms. It's your host,
Justin.
And it's Kenny. And we're going to get into first-time love, heartbreak, resentment, and young excitement. But first, we got to pay some bills. I'd like to give a shout-out to Ono Poke. It's a chef-driven fast-casual restaurant serving Hawaii's signature dish. The menu features chef-curated poke bowls. Customers can select various bases for the bowls, including fur cake rice, quinoa, spring salad, along with vegetables. Seasoning, protein options such as torch miso salmon poke, albacore tuna, and the spicy Thai salmon poke, or you can build your own bowl. Ono in Hawaiian means delicious, and that's absolutely what it is. You can find Ono Poke at 10142 104 Street in Edmonton, or Google them.
Very popular in America. Modern Gravity is the best place to relax with your spacious float tanks. If you have not floated, you really have to try this. Float it all away. All you got to do is check out Modern Gravity at www.moderngravity.ca. Their values are $39.99 a month, and you can enjoy a float a month. That's it.
That's it.
I
have a very special guest in the studio today, an ex-girlfriend of mine.
Hi.
Her name's Megan.
How's Megan today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
It's great. I had an enjoyable time in the pre-interview interview.
Yeah, you guys hit it off. You're already cheating on me.
Besties.
Both of you. Fuck. But, that's just me and my old codependent self, right?
How's that going?
Well, I read the next chapter on detachment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever read Codependency No More?
No.
By Melody Beattie?
No.
Oh,
No.
Christ.
You should.
Okay.
As you're reading it, you'll be like, that's Kenny, that's Kenny, that's Kenny.
Or what will happen is you'll be like, that's not love? Fuck. Do I have to change that much? Fuck.
So,
Kidding around.
Megan, it's been a while, eh?
Yeah.
It's really good to see you and have you here. I know we chatted numerous times on the phone, especially when I was in jail.
Mm-hmm.
You were pretty good support for me.
Always. Never missed a phone call.
Yeah. And why don't you tell our listeners what was our relationship like and when was it and how was it?
Grade 11. We met in a psychology class. I remember you were sitting behind me and you poked me and you said, I like your glasses. And they were these purple little Versace glasses, and ever since then it was over.
Yeah, it was just straight love after that.
Had a boyfriend, just didn't even break up with him, just with Kenny all the time, and he'd see Kenny and I walking down the hallways and he'd be like, what the fuck? Didn't even break up with him. So
Jacked.
Avoidance at its best.
Yeah.
Avoidance
That
at
was
its best.
ghosting before ghosting was a thing.
Yeah.
Huh.
So what was it like?
So what? Let me ask you this. How was it just the glasses thing that you became smitten with, or was there many qualities that Kenny possessed in order for the smittenness, so to say, starting or
I
coming
think
to arise?
the main thing was Kenny literally told me I was his girlfriend. He didn't ask. He kind of just told me how it was.
That's like a biker hug, isn't it?
Would that work today?
No. I've grown up since then.
Yeah, was that a one-time deal? No other guy got that?
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
he just came over to you and just that was it.
Yeah, no, just started hanging out, and you're my girlfriend now. I'm like, well, I have a boyfriend. Not anymore. Okay.
Sweet.
That's so the old lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Here's my ego. You like it?
Yeah, I just fucking claimed you. See this t-shirt? It says property of.
Yeah.
You need to wear this.
Yeah. Yeah, your property.
Oh my God.
That's so stupid, eh?
The way that was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty ridiculous back then for sure.
I think I've grown up a little bit since then.
You think? I don't
hope
think
so.
you would be here. I don't think you would be here if you haven't.
Or I'd be drunk if I was.
Kenny was the guy with one of those. What were those things where you could punch your name in it and then it would stick on stuff? Remember that thing?
Like a label maker?
Yeah. You're the guy with the label maker running around going, Kenny's.
That's what happened.
Oh, well, that's a great visual. So
we were young, dumb, and full of cum.
You were full of cum.
So you became smitten with him because he told you that was it.
You know what? Everyone at school knew who Kenny was. He was kind of a little shithead, little fearless motherfucker. And I think that, I grew up and I lost my father at a young age, and having someone take control very quickly and be protective. And I loved that, finally someone was standing up for me, and I liked that, right? I needed that. So I think at that point in my life, that's exactly what I was looking for.
Okay.
That's what I'm looking for right now.
Someone to stand up for you?
Well, like I got it.
Well, that's okay. He needs to keep reading Codependent no more. He's in a good place in the book right now, so he's going to learn quite a bit.
Yeah. me and my girlfriend are reading Codependent no more at the same time out loud to each other.
Oh, good.
Very codependent.
Yeah, a codependent. Exactly, right? And they even, so I saw the book, confession, I saw the book last week of them, like him working through the book because there's questions and stuff, and his girlfriend's answers are right next to his. Like, you couldn't have separated that.
Well, and like I thought so too. It's like we have to like go through these things and list like 0, 1, 2, or 3, depending on like how frequent they happen. And like I thought it would be unfair, as if like somebody just went first throughout the whole thing. So I went first for half of it, and then she went first for the other half of it.
Christ.
So then it was like equally.
Well, we're halfway there.
Yeah. So what was your biggest takeaway from dating me at a young age?
I think I learned a lot about people, right? I kind of learned what I was finally looking for, right? What I wanted in someone. You gave me good examples of both, right?
Well, I probably gave you a lot of examples of what you don't want, right?
Yeah, you know what? I avoided a lot of bad situations because of you. So I feel like you helped me grow up quicker at a younger age. I watch people go through the same type of thing now, and it's just so easily avoidable. And I just feel like I'm a little bit of a wise owl now because of it.
Yeah. Enlightenment through suffering.
100%.
Was there a lot of suffering in that relationship? Because I mean, you guys were both young, right? So like, was it really the blind leading the blind, really? And both, like, I mean, Kenny and I have both confessed that we come up from pretty fucked up backgrounds. So was it like, again, does it go back to that place of the blind leading the blind?
No, he was blind and he was just leading me into bad situations all the time.
Hey, well, you know what? I just came to the realization that was my longest relationship to date. I have yet to have a longer relationship than that 1 year.
So what was the duration?
We were together for 3 years.
3 years?
Almost.
No way.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Oh, man. You, Jesus.
What, did you think it was like 9 months and that was the longest relationship you'd ever been?
Was it 3 years?
Almost.
2.
Maybe.
1.5.
Grade 11, grade 12, and then remember after grad, and then a little bit after. I remember I started my first job out of high school, and that's kind of when it ended. So
yeah, when I was living close to your place, that was fun.
That was not fun.
What happened at graduation? I don't remember.
Let's.
All I remember is like we took a limo to like this spot that overlooked downtown Edmonton, and I was drinking Crown Royal straight, and that's all I remember.
I took all of your friends as grad dates, so I think that was almost a mistake as it started. There was just a bunch of crazy drunk adolescent males with their hormones raging, and I couldn't take Kenny anywhere without him getting into some sort of fight. So I don't know really what happened, but we walked into the grad and some guy said something about how I looked, and Kenny just beat the shit out of him before it even started. So I literally have a picture of you in the back of a cop car because I thought it was kind of funny to remember that. So you actually weren't there.
Oh.
You made it to the beginning part. And then I was with the rest of your friends all night. And then we went back to that little level 2 lounge, I think it was called. And that's when you were released. I don't really remember what happened.
No, I think that was a different day.
No.
when I got beat up by those two.
No, that was another day,
Yeah.
same place, and another
thing.
fuckery event.
Yeah. So one day I was in my drunken belligerence. I was standing outside this bar that our buddies owned, and it was when the Oilers were in the Stanley Cup Finals, and
2006.
yeah, and these guys were running down Jasper Ave in their underwear, waving Oilers flags, and I was offended.
No, they came out of Buddy's, the gay bar beside it. So that's what happened.
Yeah. So
And
anyways,
you
I
s-
chased these guys down, and I'm running up behind them, and I jump up in the air, and I kicked one of them in the back, and he wiped out. But then I wiped out too, because like I rolled my ankle really bad after I kicked this guy in the back. And then as I was getting up, I just got the shit kicked out of me by two gay guys in their underwear.
And you know what? That was one point, because usually you would get in fights and I'm like, oh no, Kenny, are you okay? And this time I was like, fuck you. You deserve that. You're a piece of shit.
So how long was that in? Like what was the the length of time then when you finally started getting the fuck you moments?
I don't know. It was just, it happened all the time, you know? Fights at school, fights at parties, fights everywhere. There was always fights, right? And I got exhausted after a while.
Why would you say that was? Because I was emotionally immature?
100%. You had a big ego. You had a very big ego. I don't know. I think maybe his ego's changed.
I'm just
But
I'm just messing around. I'm just messing around.
no, but
What the fuck, Justin? I thought you were on my fucking side, man.
Well, I'm sitting on your side of the table, yeah. So let me ask you, why the fighting obviously didn't stop. So why were you staying around his violent tendencies in that moment? Was it just back to the thing of a guy taking charge? Or was it you didn't feel like you could leave? Like why?
I was so in love and obsessed with him. Like I was obsessed. Doesn't matter what he'd do, I just forgive him. He always apologized
that
and
almost sounds like
admitted to everything. And as I got older, now it's, I meet men, and the one thing I could always say about Kenny is no matter what he did, he took ownership to what he did. He'd apologize, even if he felt like an asshole the next day. Come to my house, talk to my mom, apologize.
Apologize for kicking out her garden lamps.
Yeah. You
When I
still
was-
never bought her new ones after that. You promised you would. So something to think about.
Thanks for holding me accountable on the mic,
Oh.
Megan.
you know, one of the things that I'm in active recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I haven't. All the listeners know that. But one of the things that I had learned about sorry next to an apology is sorries mean nothing. Like I used to say to my mom all the time, sorry for taking that $20 out of your purse. Well, I robbed her. That's what I did. Like that's like, you didn't just take the money, Justin. You robbed her, right? So I would say sorry all the time with no follow-up. And then all of a sudden today, I've realized what apology actually means, is stopping those behaviors, right? So like my mom said this to me a little while ago, and she's like, for all the times that you said sorry, I damn well knew you were going to do it again, because there was no reinforcement of any behavioral change. And so one of the things that kind of pops up into my mind is my mom was like, eventually, as a mom, she was like, fuck this, I can't do this anymore. So I'm peacing, like I'm out. You can call it next time you call me from jail, call me from fucking rehab, wherever you're going to call me from. But there has to be some reinforcement of a behavioral change. And my mom actually took that responsibility on at the end, saying, if I'm going to be the healthiest person in this relationship, I have to put those big girl pants on and leave, and this is the way how I have to leave, because you're going to destroy me at the end of the day. I'm not going to have the energy that it's going to take for you to get the help that's necessary, right?
I bet you she can relate to that.
Yeah, no, 100%. But like I said, any other relationships or my next relationship after that, I'd catch him lying, and he would never take ownership, though. Even if he'd do it again or not, regardless, he would, no, that wasn't me. Like Shaggy caught her on the counter or caught him on the counter. It wasn't me, literally. But I caught you red-handed. It wasn't me. But at least then I thought back, you know what? Kenny wasn't so bad, but he always took ownership for everything that he did. And that's something, it's so many people nowadays, it's so much easier for them to just lie and say, you know what? It never happened.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think why it's easier for people to lie
Taking
today?
ownership is so hard.
Oh, yeah, wow.
You know, it takes it's hard on your ego, right? And so many people would rather just lie through their teeth to the end, right? It wasn't me, but it was. So you taught me something as hard as it is to apologize and take ownership. You have to,
I'm good at that. That's one thing I can say that the old man taught me that stuck deep and has benefited me throughout life is that when I fuck up, I say, hey, I fucked up, and I'm going to do my best not to make that fucking same fuck up.
I think, yeah, I can contribute to that as well, where I would always admit, well, yeah, I fucked up, but what are you going to do about it? Like, that was my attitude. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hit me? Let's get it on. Like, I'm half cocked now. Let's fucking do this, right? Like that was the attitude that I always had. I was like, what, you think you're going to knock me? I'll put you in fucking bags. Like, that's where my mind was always going to the next extreme. And then now somebody catches me, like, for shitty behavior that I might have. So I have this acronym denial, didn't even know I lied or didn't even know I had this action, really is what happens to me today. And so somebody will like say, hey, that wasn't really cool. And I'm more able today to be like, yeah, okay, that was pretty shitty. That was a blind spot of mine. Sorry I did that. It's not going to happen again. And I'm going to put the measures in place for it not to happen again. But in that moment, to humble yourself to a place where you're going to say it is half of it. And then the next half is, this is the plan that's going to be deployed so that I don't do it again. Because Kenny and I have talked about this a couple times where you could DUI, wipe out an entire family, as unfortunate of a situation as that is, but the likelihood of doing a bunch of time isn't going to help anybody feel any better about the situation. What will actually help is if that person comes to a realization that they have to change their behaviors and nobody's ever going to get hurt again. See, that's the stopgap. Punishing somebody about it, what the hell's that really going to do? Like, sure, you may not want to be in that relationship or that situation anymore, and that's totally fine for anybody. But it's up to the person to be like, yeah, I'm man enough or I'm woman enough to say, yeah, I'm not going to have those behaviors anymore. I'm going to change that. And I wholeheartedly am going to change that. So I think that's like the other side to that whole apology piece, right? It's one thing to be able to admit it, but then the follow through. I mean, I work with tons of people who have no follow through. And they're like, Catholics, man, like we go to confession once a year and it's just chalking up the sins. And then you go see the priest and you're like, I did all that shit again. And then the priest's like, well, here's your penance, but they never realized that what penance means is to change those behaviors, right? So like for self-reflection in this time with your relationship with Kenny, what were some of the behaviors that you decided to change once that relationship had been completed? Like, what were the big self things that we were like, I'm not fucking doing that to myself again. I'm going to change this about myself because of the last relationship / situation that you were in?
Well, I was very codependent, right? And so I want to be more of an independent person. And it wasn't that he controlled me, but I never wanted to let someone control my actions and the things that I did, right? Or I want to have more control over my feelings because, you're young. It's the first time for everything, but I didn't want to get stuck like that forever. I'm like, you know what? I got to put my foot down. I have to stand up for myself a little bit more, right?
Booyah.
I can't let a man define me, because for years I was associated, like, anyone we know, it was like, Kenny, and it's associated with a bunch of bad things. And I needed to detach myself from something like that and not be labeled as, you're still a great person, but, some of the things that you did to people and yourself were kind of shitty. And then kind of get associated like, oh, that time in your life, remember when you were with Kenny, and like it was some horrible thing. But I'm like, no, like I would do it all again in a heartbeat.
Let's go.
It made me, it made me a strong, independent woman. Like I'm very hard-headed and I don't take shit from anyone. But I'm still compassionate and full of empathy. And another thing that you taught me too is, it's so easy to judge someone. You can see someone and say, oh, why do they do this? Why do they do that? They're a shitty person. But you taught me to understand where someone comes from and why they are the way they are. how they grew up, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And we're all judgmental, but I feel like I take the time to think about that a little more when I'm analyzing a situation or meeting someone new, right?
We were actually talking about a healthy stereotyping in a healthy way. So like, if you were going to go do business with two guys you didn't know and you found out that they were gangsters, well, healthy wise, it's probably best that you don't do business with them.
Yeah.
That's a stereotype, right?
Yeah.
Regardless if they have the money or not, and they're business people, you have to have a snap judgment in order for self-preservation.
Yeah.
So to sit there, I think for anybody to say, well, you can't have a preconceived notion or have a judgment based upon anybody. No, you do. You have to have some sort of safe fail so that you're not sitting across from two people who will whack you the fuck out for $5,000. You know what I mean? Your life is not worth a $5,000 loan, right? Like that's self-preservation. So yeah, I think that's kind of my thoughts about judgment and those snap judgments. How many times does it save our lives? Many times.
Yeah.
Many times, like where you're looking at a situation, you're like, yeah, probably not.
You're a little sketchy, not a good idea.
The trunk of the car is open.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I want to leave today.
Would you say that substance abuse was the demise of our relationship?
100%. Always.
I was a terrible drunk.
Yeah, and knowing your story now, I know that was on the lighter side of things too.
Yeah,
you know?
I wasn't smashing crystal meth then.
No, it was drinking, ecstasy. I'm pretty sure that was it. Like, I don't remember anything else.
Well, after you, everything went to shit.
Oh. I'm sorry.
So we have a book for you.
Yeah.
Called Codependent No More. We'll throw that to you.
Yeah, you don't need to say sorry for that.
Yeah.
It wasn't your fault.
He was going to hit the fucking dirt either way.
Yeah.
It was either with you or without you. Like, that was happening. That decision was made probably around, 10, 11? That we were going. I think I was talking to somebody a little while ago, but when was the decision that you kind of knew that, like, Kurt Cobain was probably a pretty cool guy? And so to say, well, whoever that idol was in your lifetime, I was like, yeah, that's about the same time I was like, I'm okay with dying on a heroin overdose. You know what I mean? Like, it was in that same moment, and I was really young, you know. So then turn around to like 28, and I'm like, yeah. I'm flirting with death every night. I'm living out. I'm a shitty replication of Kurt Cobain because I can't kill myself. You know what I mean? Like, what did I used to say this in the meetings all the time. I was trying to do suicide by gangster because suicide by cop, those people are pussies and they'll never shoot me, but a fucking gangster will.
I don't know. Look, you pull out a gun on a cops, they'll shoot you.
Yeah, but they're not. It's not like a gangster. You don't have to pull out a gun on a gangster. You just got to rob them.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much dead. But anyways.
What was the stupidest thing you've ever seen me do?
I don't know. That's a hard one.
There's so many, eh?
There is so many. I really can't think of, it was just a series of stupid events where, you're just...
Was I doing ketamine when we were together?
No.
No? That was after?
No, that was like probably right after, right?
Oh, okay,
but, just getting drunk and making bad decisions. I watched you fight a lot with your dad, like get onto like full on brawls with each other.
Get thrown through walls?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he would say, you better fucking patch that up after he threw you through the wall.
Yeah. Patch it up.
Been there. It was not fun.
Yeah.
Did you ever considering going the other way after me? Like, did I like turn you off men for a while?
You turned me off to a certain type of men.
Certain type? Okay.
Well, my boyfriend after you, his dad was a cop. That's how other way I went after.
Hey, like I'm almost there right now. For fuck's sakes. After bringing a cop on the podcast and I'm friends with parole officers now. I'm almost a fucking cop myself now.
What do you think? Because obviously the demise of a relationship is not one-sided. It could be majority on one side. But what do you think your contribution was towards the demise of the relationship? Can you...
Yeah, I just tried to save him, tell him what to do. I was a nag. I was,
Oh, we were so talking about that before. Remember? We were like, either you're playing the victim as a codependent or you're playing the hero.
I was playing hero all the time.
There you go.
I was always standing up for him and making excuses. And then you just come to a point where you're like, I can't save someone. They can only save themselves, right?
How did that happen, though? Because, this is the beautiful thing about the podcast is you never know who's listening, right? Mm-hmm. So there's probably some Pride member out there listening to the show in the same situation that you were in. And what was the one distinct, when was that moment when you were like, I can't save him? How did that happen?
Well, remember that time?
That time that I got arrested?
No. Well, you lived down the street from my mom's house, and I stayed there quite often. And then the end was near. We were on and off for a little bit, and you had bought me that white Bronco.
No, it was a Jimmy.
Jimmy, that's it. It was a Jimmy. And I started my first job after high school.
Hold on. You know what I thought you were going to say? I started my vehicle and it didn't start, and I thought there was a bomb in it. I was like, oh, fuck.
Well, he did something pretty close to that.
Okay.
We got into a fight, and I went to my mom's, and he was pounding on the door, and he wanted the vehicle back, and I'm like, you can't do this to me. I start my first job. Like, I don't know how to take the bus there.
I gave 0 fucks. I wanted my fucking truck back.
He wanted the truck back, and you broke into the garage, you opened it, and I had the key, so you disconnected everything so it wasn't going to start. And then when I finally went into the garage, I remember my cousin was there. I got a little physical. You were joking me. And my cousin called the cops because I've never called the cops on Kenny.
I got charged for that, convicted too.
Yeah. And so they came.
Wait. Did I spit in your face?
You did a lot of things. Yeah.
Did I spit in your face?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. The other day I made a vow that I'm not going to spit in anybody's face anymore.
Thank you.
Because it doesn't work.
No, right? So, eventually, my cousin called the cops, and I think you took the vehicle and you left. She called my mother, and I tried to call the cops and say, oh, no, nothing happened here. And they came to the door. My cousin opened the door, and they came inside. I said,
I think I seen your cousin the other day
really?
At Walmart.
Maybe.
She was looking at me. I was like, oh, I think that's Megan's cousin.
And they came inside and they asked what happened. I said nothing, but they saw choke marks on my neck and they charged him. I didn't. I said this never happened because
who doesn't like getting choked when they're fucking?
We weren't fucking. We were fighting.
That's what you should have said.
If I could
You're
go
digging
back
a deeper hole, my friend. You're digging a deeper hole.
You know what? I'm the type of person that I don't like getting police involved. That's just who I am. I like to, maybe I learned from you. I deal with things on my own. That's what I was trying to do.
Well, that's the wrong way. You should call the cops from now on.
I know.
Okay.
But I've never been in that situation.
Make them work.
I've never had to call them. But you know what? I'm kind of thankful that did happen because that was the point where I was like, other people are witnessing this. Police are involved. I look stupid if I let you back in. I look stupid and I can't do that to myself anymore. So that's the point I realized.
So let me ask you this then, because this alludes to this. Prior to the relationship, what did your self-esteem look like at that time?
That's a hard one. You're a young woman growing up and you're trying to find your place in the world, figure out who you are. And again, I grew up without a father. So there was always that other half of me that I was wondering what kind of person I am, what he was like. So I was always searching for something. So I feel like when Kenny came along, he kind of filled that void of something that I was looking for.
So it's kind of strange. This all kind of just hit my head a little bit. So my mom's dad died when she was 2.
Yeah.
She didn't have a dad either. And then I look at my dad. My dad was like you. That's how my dad was. He was just like you. And so when I'm looking at it, my mom had that same epiphany later on in her life where she was like, I can't fucking do this. The only difference is you guys didn't have a kid.
Well, here's a good one.
Uh-oh.
I got pregnant the first time we ever had sex.
Bam, sure shot.
Yeah. I was that person, that 1 in a million.
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
I took
So-
her to the clinic.
Yeah. I remember there was like protesters outside too. Just make me feel like shit before I go in there. I was 16. I wasn't having a baby, and
You
I
should've.
love you, but I'm so glad that that's something that we didn't do.
Well, and I think that's the thing, right? Like, I think there's a piece in that too where we talk about later on 2020 being hindsight's always 2020. It's perfect vision, really, because we're looking at it like this is what I should have did, and we start shooting on ourselves. But I think one of the things that I always reflect back upon in my early sexual encounters, so to say, is the partners I were with were, and I wrote this in the blog, they're a direct reflection of who I was. You know, there was some piece of me that was not great, and that's what I ended up attracting to me, right?
Everybody and their cat and dog said Megan was too good for me. Even my own mom and dad said Megan was too good for me.
Well, and then like I said, that's why I was saying, like, well, what did your self-esteem look like before?
it was obviously low.
And so, like, because that's the attraction.
Wow.
Like, well,
Sorry.
but that's the way how we attracted that partner, so to say, right? And like you had said, everything that Kenny was something that you thought that a dad kind of should have been, or he kind of took that role for you in the moment. But as much as he was that, you were the one who was jumping on the horse, throwing on the armor, and
You were
saving him all
momming
the
me.
time.
Always, right? And you know what? The other thing is I fell in love with your family too, right? And I just went from just being me and my mother to all of us and being diverse. And, you know, I loved that for the first time. And they always stood up for me too if Kenny was an asshole. Either of them was in my corner of the ring all the time. I could call either one of them to tell them what happened. And then I kind of felt like, okay, well, I have authority over Kenny almost, right?
no.
Because his parents are on my side.
Did you ever have this statement coming out of your mouth? I'll call your parents.
No, I just did it. Right? So
And like calling the parents would have really mattered. I mean, effectively, you guys are all young adults. Mm-hmm. And what the fuck are they going to do?
I
Well, my
just
dad would have whooped my ass.
he did several
Yeah, well.
times, you know?
You had a trigger and you didn't even know it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, she fucking knew it. She pulled it.
All the time. All the time. Even after, you know what, we broke up and, you know, all that stuff happened. He got charged. It was New Year's. His father called me and said, you know what, I'm going to take you out for New Year's. He picked me up in a limo with his friends and we, you know, we partied and had a great time. Like, he still cared and he reassured me that nothing was my fault. So
We did have a clip of Kenny talking about his dad last time where Kenny's dad bailed out some girl.
that was me.
No, yeah, that was like my ex-girlfriend. We got arrested at the same time, and he bailed her out, and then she went and stayed with him.
But the way how he found out was he called the house and she answered the phone from jail. That's how the clip went. And then at the end of the clip, he's like, because everybody knows my dad. And I'm like, no, like, you got to spell this out. And Kenny says, well, my dad was probably banging my girlfriend. So I would suspect, I hope not, though, that his dad was getting a limo.
No, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
It was very, no.
But see,
You know what?
this is the perspective of the
Okay.
listener, right?
Yeah,
like,
of
this
course.
is the perspective of the listener.
He, at that point in my life, he was a big father figure
Okay.
in my life. Like I was, before the show we were talking, I was saying to Kenny that once I said the word cunt and he grabbed me and said, if you ever talk like that, like that's exactly the kind of woman you are. You're not that kind of person. Don't talk like that. Don't speak of girls like that. And he kind of just taught me of what kind of person I want to be. I see a lot of examples of women around him that I didn't respect. And I watched you guys disrespect women a lot. And I saw the type of women you were disrespecting. And that was a clear example, like a huge part of my life of decisions that I make, you know, things that I did.
So now, like, are you more conservative?
I'm very conservative. I'm a prude. I'm a bitch. I'm conservative. I'm very hard-headed, right?
I said this too. Like so on the other show, I used to be a pimp back in my lifetime, and after you go through things so we should probably break down the exposure that you went through in regards to, like, you were saying you went to a house party and there was 2 girls banging each other with double-sided dildos
On the pool table.
Yeah, on the pool table. So, like, being exposed to those kinds of that sexual environment.
Prostitutes.
Yeah.
Hang around women that,
Groupies.
Groupies, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember some of them were kind of rude to me because,
Well, you were the young groupie.
Oh.
Better looking than them.
but I wasn't a groupie. But I got treated like one, like who is the 16-year-old young buck here, right? And your dad would always stand up for me. She's like my daughter. And then it was respect. I remember, when we went out for New Year's, there was women all over him and kind of being rude to me, and he was like, she's like my daughter. So it was different, right?
It changed the dynamic right away.
Totally.
Then.
Well, probably a whole bunch of underage girls all over him.
But
Yeah, so it didn't look awkward him with a 16-year. Well, at that time I was 18, but
but I agree. I think that's what ends up happening when you're exposed to that kind of sexually charged environment, that you're like, no. But then you could be Kenny and go totally the other way, where he's not like that. He's been pretty open about it on the show, where he's not conservative about his sexual relationships today.
No.
It doesn't sound like he's
No.
very much still the same person that he was, and he hasn't changed that. I used to be like that, and now no longer am. Like it just changes, I think, from the filter of what you've gone through.
Well, I'm not like hypersexual where I'm like beating off walking down the street or anything.
That was like 13, right? You're
Holy
like, God, is
fuck,
there something
no,
I could
no.
eat to make this stop?
Make my
Like,
boner go away.
You start crying. You're like, oh, not again. Please,
man.
please, I just want to go to school. Like, is there something I can eat? I'm so tired of this.
No, but like
All my clothes are sticking to me.
I feel like after doing a lot of GHB that like every time I would have sex it would have to like be dirtier.
Oh.
And so now like I'm totally like, if you're not licking each other's buttholes, then it's not even true love.
Well, there's a topping, right? I think that, like, I remember that too. Like, there was a time with heroin and sex where I was like, I needed to have a shot as I was having an orgasm to have the effect of both orgasms. And then eventually it came to a point where I was like, fuck sex. I just want drugs. Like, heroin's better than sex by far, right? That's what it became.
I never
So-
did heroin.
See the smile on his face is like, kind of. Well, you did oxys, right?
No.
Dillies.
No.
All that shit's the same thing.
I was never a down guy, man. I was always on up.
Yeah, I liked the up to wake up, and then I would like the down to go to sleep.
Yeah, I just never slept.
Well, I after 4 or 5 days would hit the mat, so to say.
That's when the shadow people come
Let me
out.
ask you this: how much manipulating on your side was a part of that relationship? So the reason why I ask this, to preface, is we had an escort on last week, and she was talking about the manipulation that she would utilize in order to keep herself safe. And so I think, just as little boys and little girls, little boys will punch each other in the playground, and little girls manipulate each other, and that's kind of how they're mean. And then when we get older, men, when we're confrontational with a woman, we have a flight or fight response. We don't have a manipulative response, really. It's either we're going to hit you or we're going to run.
We're going to go for milk, and we're not going to come back for a week.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff, right? And then with women, when there's controversy or there's an escalation in any regard, there's manipulation that's happening, either to incite it,
slit your throat,
or to
with
stop
their
it,
words.
right? Yeah, so like that's what I'm getting at, is what kind of manipulation was a part of that relationship in your younger age, and then did you outgrow that?
He's going to have to answer that because
I manipulated the shit out of her.
Yeah, and I feel like now I'm more manipulative than I was. I feel like I just was playing the little innocent girl role all the time.
Well, you weren't even playing it.
I was, right? So I don't feel like I was always like, oh, I'm to blame. I shouldn't do this because then he'll act this certain way, right? So now, I wouldn't say I'm manipulative now, but if my current partner does something and it pisses me off, I take the approach where I pick and choose my battles. I don't get mad over everything, but when he fucks up, it's big. Like, you know, that big not talking to you, I'm just going to like make you eat your own shit kind of thing, right? So by not overplaying being angry and taking it to the next level all the time, I save it and it's dormant, and then I wait for my attack, and it has to be worth it, right? You know?
She sounds Sicilian.
She sounds Sicilian. Sounds vicious. Oh my goodness.
I can be, you know.
Well, you used to say sorry every time I fucking sneezed or like something so minuscule. You'd be like, "Oh, sorry."
So why was the play of manipulation so heavily involved on your side then?
Well, I like not only used her for sex and like that, you know, that object, right? Women to me before, like I learned from my father how to treat a woman. It wasn't the right way.
Yeah.
And so it was very like controlling. You know, if I could get her to like cook me dinner, bring me a beer,
That was a win.
and then suck my dick, I'm fucking I'm king of the mountain, right? And so it was like always like, yo, we got to go do this. We got to do this. I was always like enforcing, telling her what to do. And then I realized like, you know, after we broke up, but you know, she's my longest standing friend. I almost want to say like longest standing friend, but there might be other people longer. But like we've been friends for over a decade now.
Way longer than that.
And like throughout, I noticed how it like reversed, where I was almost like coming back to her, crawling on my knees, saying like, you know, I'm sorry I was that way. You know, be my friend, help me, support me. Because for so long I was just like domineering and controlling, and you know, it was all about, I had her to fuel my ego.
You know, it's crazy as you're saying that. I remember you and I had a conversation on the podcast before where we were talking about taking people hostage with our
Emotional blackmail?
more like when we have a business idea, we get so built up about it that we'll take other people hostage. So we have so much enthusiasm that they're like, yeah, it's a great idea. And then next thing you know, they're working for us, right? You see how like that almost becomes like a shortcoming we don't even see, because it stems from that. Like it stems from getting this person to do things we know that we're manipulating. And then what ends up happening later on, as much as our intentions are good, we're still trying to run the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're trying to be good people, but the thin line that's happening underneath all of it is we're still being manipulative in some sort of form, some sort of fashion, because really we don't know how to just let people be people, right? And that's difficult. It's a really difficult insight to see, especially coming from that lifestyle. It's very difficult because we don't feel like we're in control of anything unless we're like, you got to do this with me and you got to do that with me and you got to ba. It's different when both people are in the same ship. But when somebody's like out on the shore and they're like, yeah, it's great, and you're still yelling from the middle of the lake like, hey, can you do this and do this and do this and do this? It's not. I mean, that we're playing out that old role. Right. So it's strange. Like I said, we had that conversation before. So like to hear the beginning of it to like where you've come to now, you know, and then the self-reflection through your codependent no more, seeing that like let people be people. That's where you're at with detachment.
Yeah.
Right. So like let them be them. You don't have to ask them of anything. Let them volunteer. And when they volunteer, well, cool. Go along with it. You know?
Yeah. Unless they volunteer too much.
Yeah, then you probably are like,
yo, read this chapter.
Yeah. But it was a really good insight, I think, like to see that, you know. Manipulating factor, though, I just want to say one more thing is like, so as you were doing this to poor Megan over here.
Poor Megan.
Were you running everybody else in your life at that time the same way as that?
Yeah, except for my plug. Except for the guy I was gripping dope off of.
Oh, yeah.
Like, but everybody I would talk to in one way, shape, or form, I was getting something out of the deal.
Yeah.
And
How was your perception of that? Could you see that, and could you see that that was happening to you in the moment?
No, not in the moment. 100% not. I was just so naive, right?
but afterwards,
Afterwards, 100%. Now I see it all too clear. Maybe
Yeah.
too clear.
yeah, now you learned a thing or two.
I'm always one step ahead now.
How do you mean?
You know what? Like here, sorry to interject here. She made me feel so fucking good one time because like she's compared to me. Like I just spent a decade in jail for fuck's sakes. I'm trying to piece together my life, and at the I was in jail and I was talking to her on the phone and she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm doing this now and I'm doing this now and I'm doing this, and I just want to let you know, Kenny, it's because of you. And I owe it to you because you taught me how to fucking hustle. I was like crying. I was so proud. I was like, yeah.
It's true.
I mean, hard work is hard work. Learning how to do it and where to work hard is a whole nother talent, I think. And yeah, that definitely comes. Like we were talking, last month's topic was entrepreneurs. Well, you'd be a drug dealer and you're just a drug dealer. Even though you may be selling every drug under the sun, you're still just a drug dealer. But if you're a drug dealer, a pimp, an extortionist, a narcissist, you're now a gangster. Well, what's a gangster? A gangster is an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is just in the legitimate world. So if you have that mind frame, the sky's the limit. Like the sky isn't the limit. You can just keep going and going and going. And I think the only place where you really find that is in the ghetto, and you find that with people who had fuck all coming from fuck all to make something into something, and the only way their vessel to do that wasn't really going to school. It wasn't meeting those connections. It was reinforcing new connections that were going to help you get to that place. Because I don't think it's so much about a sociological status that gets you to the place, as opposed to this is who I am, this is what I am, and this is basically what I'm selling. Either you buy in or you don't, right? So I think that's almost the contributing factor from everybody from that lifestyle. And the unfortunate thing is most of them get snuffed out. The ideology is they want to take something from society, and I would probably bet one of my last 5 cents, because we don't have pennies in Canada anymore, that around this table, we're all about contributing to the stream of life as opposed to depriving from the stream of life. Because back in those times, we were just depriving. We were just sucking as much life out of that stream of life that we could possibly do. Probably not you, as opposed to Kenny and I.
Well, maybe in a different sense.
What sense?
I don't know. I was just putting that out there so it didn't seem so fucking so dark and evil.
But I mean, that's where we have to come from. And then from you witnessing it is what I'm getting at. From you witnessing it, you can kind of see, well, that's the hustle.
Well, now just who I am. Everyone that I associate with myself nowadays came from less and made something of themselves. I can't handle pretentious people. I like people. I'm always into the bad boy gone good kind of thing. Do you
have a cop fetish too?
No.
You already lived that one out.
That was a short-lived one. But
no pun intended.
Everyone that I surround myself with, though, I have to.
Kenny, I'm making a rule right now. We're not allowed to talk about penis sizes anymore on the show because you were way too fucked up after the last one.
What?
I'm just kidding. The listeners will get that for sure. Want to explain?
What the fuck?
Let's explain. Why don't you take that away?
Okay, well, like when we had the escort on, we were talking, does size matter, right? And she was talking about how, like, a big dick is like 9-10 inches. And then she's like, then there's like, the small dicks. And she's like, they're like 6. And I'm like, 6 is not fucking small, okay?
6 is average.
She laughs.
Thanks, Megs. Thank you.
Average.
And then he made a pun on the cop because he said short-lived. So he made a pun. And then I was like, we're not talking about penis sizes anymore on this show because you were too fucked up last time.
Yeah. And then, like, every time, like, I'd be like, it's not small.
It's not small.
There you go. Bam.
to confirm.
Bam.
I don't really remember.
Let the
though.
emails roll in.
He's going back on Tinder.
Yeah, I'm going back on Tinder now with a link to this episode.
The soundbite.
Yeah.
It's not small from a woman's voice.
It's not small.
Anyways.
Okay, let's get off this shit here.
Yeah. Back to where we were at.
Okay. How long? You've been in a long-term relationship right now.
Yes.
How long?
9 years.
Holy fuck.
Oh, so there's a couple things that Kenny needs to have an answer from.
Mm-hmm.
One is, how do you keep the fire alive? Because he had a bunch of questions from the beginning of this theme,
Yeah.
and we're trying to bounce it off from as many people as we can from their perspective, right? So these are kind of like the ongoing life on life's terms questions. One of them is, how did you keep the fire alive for 9 years?
It always changes because when you start dating at a young age, you're constantly changing and becoming into the person you're always going to be, or hopefully always will be. The way you just have to be dynamic, right? You always have to, and keeping the fire alive, it's never going to be alive. You know, when you alive like it is when you first meet someone, it's always exciting and fun and you feel these crazy feelings, but after the love becomes, it's deeper than that. So you just have to, spend time appreciating each other and being thankful and grateful for each other. To me, that keeps the fire alive. Babe, you worked a hard day, or I'm so proud of you. Things like that. It's not like, there's that sexual keeping the fire alive, but then there's also keeping the relationship alive. And I think that is the fire.
Yeah, that's
right?
more important than
That is more important.
That's what we were talking about. Remember, I was saying I appreciate my partner more in seeing the struggles that they overcome than I do. And they'll ask me for support, and that's fine. Like, I'll provide it. But to see them independently do it is much more of a turn on to me today than me jumping on the white horse, putting the armor on. And you don't even have to ask. You don't even have to ask. I'm here.
You can, you know what? There's that keeping the relationship alive. You can go buy some outfits or do some crazy things or be someone else, but anyone can do that.
Yeah.
The hard part is being committed and not giving up over stupid things, right? Not staying mad for no reason and understanding the other side to the story and what someone else is sacrificing, right?
I agree.
wise words.
I agree. Now, another question is power couple. My ideology of a power couple is that it's two independent people that show that they're independent of each other, and they come together, and that makes people powerful. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're in business together. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're colleagues of each other. It just means that when they come together, they're appreciated for what they are, right? Your definition of power couple was a little bit different than mine.
Yeah, it's like when they are together, they just like kick ass in every area together. They always look fresh as fuck. They fucking have good looking kids. They have lots of money in the bank. They come up with good ideas together. They go to the gym together.
To add
well, that
to
sounds a little codependent, but
yeah, you know what? I can.
Well, now you're... 1 second. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But now you're seeing... Remember when you were first saying that, you went right back to where you were at the beginning of the month. But you're saying now with the reinforcement of that's maybe a little bit codependent.
yeah.
It's very.
But that's cool that you're seeing it.
I'm
because
learning.
now you're transforming into this... to something that where you're looking at being an individual. You're being independent.
Without a small penis.
Yeah, like it's that's really cool growth, man. Like I gave you your kudos at the beginning of this month because you and I can actually have a business conversation in regards to you have a well-reinforced 101 knowledge or understanding knowledge of what it is to incorporate a business.
Yeah.
And that was your takeaway from last month. And then
Life
here
on-
you are now.
I have a life on life's terms education.
and like now you're sitting here talking, yeah, shit, that's codependent. That's fucking cool, man. Like that's really cool to see that growth. But your definition of a power couple is
A little more like yours, because from Kenny's point, I know a lot of couples that look like they have it all from the outside, and in public, They look like the ideal couple, and it's so easy to compare your life. Oh my gosh, I wish I was like them. But when you get to know them, the inside, it's broken, and there's not a lot of trust and a lot of fighting and bickering, and from the outside it's just so pointless. Where then I'll look at my relationship and I feel like it's stronger from the inside, and I don't try, or we don't try to prove to be someone that now we have our own identity of the kind of people we are. And maybe some people look at that and admire it, like I would look at that rich, successful couple with the beautiful kids and the big house, right? But I think my definition is a lot like yours. Two strong people that have a good sense of who they are and what they want, and they're striving to work to that together, right?
Fuck, you sound so proper.
That's cool.
Really?
So before, so we can stay a little bit on the beginning, the 4 words that you had said in the beginning. What is your biggest resentment from the relationship that you had with Kenny when you were young? What was the resentment that you held on to the longest? And have you gotten over it?
Yes. Well, I just resented all the things that he did to me. He said he loved me, and then he used the shit out of me, and I know deep down he did. But men always come back, and that's something I learned from you. Give it time. Their wounds will open, and they always come crawling back. And that's the biggest thing I learned. But at that point, I grew up so much in that short amount of time, and I grew some independence that I didn't want it anymore, right? But when it first happens and you first break up, I was so hurt. And I can still remember how I felt, like my whole body hurt. I've never been so hurt in my life, still to this day, as I was. And I'll change who I am. I'll do anything to get him back.
Yeah.
And then I go through time and start realizing who I am as a person. Start realizing I am a person. I have my own identity. I'm not just Kenny's little girlfriend, right? And then after, I can't even remember what time you were in jail, but he finally had wrote me a letter. I was in another relationship, and the letter, I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it, but he finally just apologized for everything. It's like everything I ever wanted, and it wasn't a phone call. It was a beautifully written letter going in depth.
I made amends.
He did.
That's
and that
great.
moment, I forgive him, and I let him back in my life with boundaries.
Now, the cool thing that I love that I got out of what you had just said was you allowed him to be him.
Yeah.
You see that? It wasn't a persona. It wasn't like the thought of what he could be. It was just Kenny being Kenny and allowing him to be who he is. The amount of growth that it takes, like I work with a lot of families who have an addict in the family, and they say, I just want him to change. I'm like, no, you have two decisions here, or two choices to make. One, you have to accept them for who they are, and they're going to fuck up for a really long time before they decide to change. Or you can decide to say, I don't want to be a part of this, and dust off your hands and say, call me when you're ready to change. Because either way, you are the one who has to realize either I got to shit or get off the pot. And you're the one who has to realize I need to accept them for exactly what they are, or I'm not going to ever accept them. And the best thing to do is just let them go. Right? And let him be who he's going to be or what they're going to be outside of this. And the cool thing is that she let you back into her life, allowing you to be who you are. But she learned how to protect herself with her boundaries.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, man. Like, that's really cool. Those boundaries that you utilize, though, did they come from learning from other relationships, or was it solely all the lessons that you learned from the relationship with Kenny?
It came from a lot of relationships, friends, boyfriends, just everything, right?
Yeah.
You just slowly realize that you can't change someone, and boundaries is the biggest thing. I realized I can have someone in my life. I can enjoy all the qualities I love about them, but I don't need to be their everything, right? We don't need to be together.
Why not?
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's
That's
great.
the thing. And I'm not trying to pump your tires or anything right now, but throughout our life, when you were going through the worst shit, after we were over and you're, robbing people, doing really bad drugs, going to jail, stealing things. I don't know what you did.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in the back of my head, it's like every time you go out of jail, you're like, oh, I'm changing. I'm on this path. And I was always standing up for you, telling people, you know, Kenny's on the good path. Kenny's doing that. And they're all like, oh, yeah.
How
Right.
long?
Yeah.
So now,
The stopwatch is on.
so now, you know, you made me look better. You're in a really good place right now, and you're everything I knew that you were.
Aww.
But like aside from all the fuckery, like you're a really great person, and you're full of love, and you're very genuine, and it's hard to find people like that. And you're very intelligent. You make some stupid decisions, but you're a very intelligent person, and people don't see that. They just see the things that you do, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now to see him
Tires are pumped.
be this type of person that I always knew he could be.
6 inches is worth it now.
Exactly. He made me feel better about my decision of being with him, because before I was in denial, like, oh, I dated this total loser, blah, 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 right? But now I'm like, no, but he's himself without everything that was polluting him now. He's his true self, and now you just made me look better. Now I'm so happy knowing like everyone knows, you know,
I'll
what
pump your tires.
you know, so I just want to congratulate you for all that. And
Thank you.
sitting here, you know, after all these years and everything, it just warms my heart knowing, you know, I don't want to cry.
So we'll. I'll just do a quick breakdown then. So you forgave him. So you resented the entire relationship, and then you forgave him when he wrote you the letter. Essentially, in a nutshell, is the way how that looks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing that we have on the list is the time that you had the most excitement with him. Like, was it the time with the 2 girls on the pool table? Was that mind blowing enough that that was excitable, or did you go on him with on a jack ride where he was robbing a drug dealer? Like which one is the most?
All of the above, you know, it was jacking people, fights, doing drugs. I was in situations a 16-year-old girl shouldn't be. I've seen so much fucked up shit, you know, hookers and sex and just, and being involved with that too, you know, like I've never done drugs again in my life, but we went through a phase where we were doing a lot of ecstasy and sitting in a apartment for days, not eating, just having sex, things like that. You know, I think that was the excitement because I don't do that anymore. Like that was
probably a healthy thing.
Yeah,
right? You might have caught an STI by now if you did.
Probably, right? Yeah. So that was the excitement, just all these things that I've never been exposed to. And the weird part of everything is no matter how much danger we were encountering, I always felt safe with him. I always felt like no matter the worst outcome, he'll never let anything happen to me. And he wouldn't have, because he's always...
I'll fucking take the fall.
Yeah, always. And he always did.
Doing time was just getting his resume longer.
Yeah, I ain't afraid of time.
Yeah, like he was at a time in his life where he would have just confessed the shit he didn't do, because it would have made the resume even longer. Fuck yeah, I did that shit.
I robbed that bank.
Yeah, fucking helps the ego. Shit, do you know how well this looks upon my colleagues in the underworld?
Yeah. Fuck, I wasn't king of Turd Island for nothing.
Yeah, what are we gonna do today, Pinky? You're gonna take over the world from where? This cell.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right?
You always used to say that.
Yeah, I still do.
Yeah.
So we got the resentment and the excitement piece down, and then we did talk. So we touched on the breakup piece, right? Have you ever had a breakup that was as hard as that one?
No.
Did you ever allow yourself? Did you always have a piece of detachment though from like any other partner after that? So I'll try to clarify that a little bit more. The first love, so to say, there's no detachment in place. Like for us to break away, it's very difficult because we don't know how to break away in a healthy way. You know, it's usually like for my case, it's always cops are called, some crazy shit's happening. You know, like you were saying, they're packing their fucking bags. I don't give a shit if it's 40 below out. You're out the fucking door, whatever it is, right? So it's never a healthy detachment. So did you learn from that time how to make always a healthy detachment from your next relationships?
Oh, for sure.
Can you teach me?
Yes. You have to think about the other person regardless
What?
of the situation
But
and
then
how
it's-
they're going to feel.
But then it's not all about me.
Well, I think that's something you still might need to learn.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, Kenny's question one time was, is there even a way of a healthy breakup? I was like, well, one, you don't move in right away. Like that's a no-no. And secondly, you give yourself I wrote this in the blog, give yourself about a year prior to moving in with anybody. This way, if you do have to break up, you just go for coffee. You know what I mean? It's not like packing my shit now and then when they come home from work, you're gone, right? Like it's not that, because that's not healthy. But also to build it, and this is always the check I do. I'm so glad my partner doesn't listen to this show. But this is the check that I do is I'll ask myself quite often, honestly, if they were to leave, is it going to feel like my arm is gone? Because if it feels like that, like you had felt, like your body, it hurt your body. And I went through that with my wife when she left. I felt like I lost my arm. That's literally what it felt like. And so I ask myself quite often now, if they leave, how am I going to handle that? And can I handle it? Sure, I'm going to be upset. I'm not saying that I'm not going to be. But is it going to feel like I've lost a limb? Because if it feels like I've lost a limb, I'm codependent. And I need to look at where I've lost my independence within that relationship. You know what I mean? I really, really have to put that under the microscope because I will become a controlling freak without even seeing that kind of come up and bite me, right? So, yeah, I mean, detaching, back to that question, what was the easiest way for you, as an example, to detach from a recent relationship outside of 9 years, I guess?
Just be honest, It's not working. And you have to take the other person's feelings into consideration. And I'm not perfect by all means, but a lot of times you can be like a horrible person and do a lot of shitty things. Like, okay, we own a house together. Well, even if he paid for most of it, fuck you, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
I think the way that I think is take what you bring to the table, whether it be a material property or a emotion, right?
So chime in with Liam terminology here. That's called a prenuptial. Liam's our lawyer.
Yeah.
So it's called a prenuptial. that makes a real nice break. Makes a real nice break.
Yeah, but I'm the type of person I've always wanted to be now. I don't want to be that person that if I'm going through a divorce, he's sitting there talking about me saying, oh, that cunt, she's trying to take everything. Yeah. I don't want to be that person. Yeah. If he gives me what I think I deserve, obviously I work and have my own life too, but you build a life together and say there's children involved, you need to make it comfortable for each person, right? Uh-huh. But you have to be fair, right? So regardless of the situation, you have to take everything into consideration. So
Kenny, what did you learn from the relationship? Now, looking back at it from now, rating codependent no more, going through this episode, because we're coming close to the end of it, what's your biggest lesson learned out of all of this?
I fucked up. No, so I understand my shortcomings now. I'm way more aware of what I did that was unhealthy and wrong, and why it produced that type of fruit in my life for so many years, such as addiction and incarceration. Still now today, that's why I'm reading Codependency No More, is I'm still not emotionally as mature as I want to be. I don't want to have those feelings like I'm losing my left arm.
Yeah.
Just because the girl I've been seeing for the last 4 or 5 months, it's not really cracking out to what I was hoping it was going to be. I'm a lot more emotionally intelligent. Still, how to use those emotions, I'm able to identify them way better than ever before. How to direct them in an amicable way, in a way that's not going to cause riff and problems, is something I'm still working on. I often find myself passive aggressive, oh, really, type thing, and that's not the healthiest.
Well, I think I will revert to passive aggressiveness because I don't have enough courage to actually say how I feel, or I don't know exactly how I feel. So one of the tricks that I learned was to make note of it. Right in the middle of the conversation, I'll say, look, there's something that bothers me about this. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'd like us to have an adult conversation about this later when I've basically discerned what it is that I'm feeling in the moment. And I'll actually, like, for a while in early recovery, I walked around with a little black book with, like, this situation happened. I felt something shitty. I was going to be passive aggressive. And at the end of the night, I would have to look at that fucking book and be like, why did that bother me? Was it me? Was it internal or was it external?
It's always internal.
Sometimes though, people are assholes, and that's how you start deciphering that. Because sometimes, yeah, you're right. Probably most times it's an internal thing, but maybe somebody was actually trying to bother you. And when you say that and you're like, hey, there's something wrong here. I feel something shitty. This has happened to me where the other person's like, well, yeah, I'm trying to make you feel like an asshole. You didn't catch my sarcasm, fucking idiot. Like that's what it becomes, right? So then you start recognizing, okay, well, I'm not that codependent. I'm not that fucked up where the whole world is about me, but it's also people are assholes. So that's why you have sponsors and all that stuff. But that tip has always helped me with passive aggressiveness. As soon as you see it creep up, write it down and then look at it later. It works. That works.
But, like, I'm really grateful for this episode and, like, still having Megan in my life because
thanks for coming in.
She's a huge support for me. And, like, the times when I was, like, down and out, I didn't have nobody else to call. She answered, and, like, wouldn't just, like, give me some fucking 7-Eleven conversation either. In-depth conversation, real talk. And every time, like, I hung up the phone, felt stronger. Like, yeah, like, I got that person in my corner still, and then I was progressing, moving forward from there. But thank you, like, because I don't feel as big of a piece of shit as I make myself out to be sometimes, and I do have, like, a really douchebag sense of humor.
We all kind of go there.
You got to keep it entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's and also just from my perspective, what I like that you had brought in is that anybody going through that abuse, for lack of a better term, whether it's like, I don't think it was intentional. It's just where we come from. You know what I mean? I really don't believe that anybody coming from a lifestyle as shitty as the lifestyle that we were raised in, even acknowledges that we're being that manipulative, we're being that abusive. We don't know that there's no difference, to us. It's like, well, I was actually treating you less than what I've seen. Like, you know what I mean? So,
manipulation to me used to be like a board game. Like, I used to, with my late friend there, like, I used to laugh with him about how we would manipulate girls in our lives. It's like, ha ha ha, I totally pulled the wool over that bitch's eyes.
Yeah. And I think the filter that Megan brought in was how to move past that. Because it doesn't seem like you fell back into the bad boy clause where they had to be reformed. You know what I mean? Like you showed the depth of your change. You didn't allow this situation to reoccur again and again and again. It sounds like.
Got to break the chain.
Yeah, like, and
quick learner, eh?
And you learned that fairly quickly, because there's many women out there, many Pride listeners out there who are listening to the show, who are going in this, maybe the 10th relationship with of the same rut that you guys were just talking about over this last hour or so.
It sounds cliche, but just love yourself, know your worth.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah, even like on my end of the side, like, once I started to love myself, like, there was no need to manipulate anybody to do anything for me.
Yeah.
Once I started loving myself with my actions, people came to me out of respect and said, I want to do what you're doing. I want to fight for the same cause you're fighting for.
Yeah. And I think we talk about that all the time on the show is how are you going to learn to love yourself? Like, we did a whole big piece on, have you earned the right to be in a healthy relationship? Because it's going to take a lot of progress from your side in order to earn the right to be in a healthy relationship where you can say, before you love your partner, I can love myself. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't do that for yourself and you can't show yourself love, How the hell are they ever? They're
No, then you have like no right to be in a relationship.
Words are nothing. Words are just verbal blowjobs. That's all they are. They mean absolutely fucking nothing. What really means something is the action. You know, did you do this certain action for yourself to love yourself? And if you can do that for yourself, that means you could probably do that with your partner, not for your partner, but with your partner. There's a huge difference in saying with or for, because you can't make somebody do anything. If they decide that they want to do something with you, well, then that's really cool. And that's probably where you guys get along. That's the attraction. And then to watch somebody perform, so on and so forth, that's when that fire will keep on going. You know, the sex is like, that goes away after time. You know what I mean? It's not, it's just, it becomes like a necessity.
Do you brush your teeth while he takes a dump?
This is actually a question.
She nods her head. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's true love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that stuff.
Yeah. No, there's as much as we have boundaries with each other, there is no boundaries. You know, any way I feel or whoever I am that day, he has to accept and I have to accept, you know.
Yeah.
You have some hard days and you can be a really shitty person, but you just need to know that it is a hard day and tomorrow's going to be different. And don't get me wrong, when he's in a bad mood because he's doing something, I hate when people fuck with my energy. I'm always happy. And when someone's negative, even though he's not a lot of the time, but if he is negative, I feel bad. I'm kind of a bitch back. I'm like, you're fucking with my energy. I'm having a good day. You just ruined it. But I'm learning to, you know, it's just a down day and he always recovers. I just need to be supportive or give someone space, you know, to continue on. So that's what I'm learning about too.
I could see you being a relationship counselor one day.
You know, it's really, it's really crazy is, so my partner yesterday, I was having a pretty shitty day yesterday and they had said something. I was like, I'm just having a shitty day. And they said, is there anything I could do to help you? And I said, you know what? It's my responsibility to turn this day around. It's not yours. And they looked at me and they're like, that's right. So why don't you go and fucking do it then? That's the reality. Like there's nothing, like I'm just being a fucking stick in the mud and there's no reason for it. Sure, there's mitigating factors or whatever, but it's harder to become positive about it than it is to be negative. Negative is just easier than being positive about any situation, right? So, I mean, but you also have to be realistic. You know, if your car sets on fire and your house is gone, well, guess what? You have no car and you're fucking homeless. Like that's the reality. Yeah. It's a pretty negative situation, but being realistic that there's another way out of that, maybe there is, you know? So it's just one of those filter things, I think, you know? Well,
I think that about sums it.
I think so too.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in.
Anytime. I'll do anything to support Kenny. Anything that any of his endeavors. I'm
anything?
Boundaries, okay? You know what? Almost anything.
Hey, even that rings a bell. Almost anything?
Almost anything.
All right. Please subscribe and share with all your friends. You can find the After the Show blog at www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com. Please become a Pride member at your soonest convenience by dropping us your email. We will not sell it, solicit it, or give it to the Chinese. If you would like to become a financial contributor, we do have a Patreon page. It's www.patreon.com/lifeonlifesterms with capital L's. A contribution as little as $5 a month. We will send you all the good vibes we can. LIVIN, man.
Guys, have a beautiful Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye.